Hello everybody, this is Anuj Tripathi and you are watching the Review Universe. So today we are having another podcast with Javette Nixon. Javette Nixon is an entrepreneur, a marketer and investor. He is also the CEO of Point Global and Esther Group. Javette shares insights on finance, marketing and innovation with the blend of Caribbean roots. So Javette, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's start with your books first. Like you have published two of them, From the Margins in 2022 and The Weaving of Kente in 2025. Okay, so let's ask about the journey first. Like you have an incredible journey of your writing journey from leading Point Global to Esther Group. Like just give some idea or the basic intro we can say to the
Yes,
audience who is listening you for the first time.
sure. So in I wasn't a natural writer. Um, During the COVID pandemic, like lots of other persons around the world, you go into lockdown. I run a marketing and branding firm, and generally I'm writing strategy related to how companies are acquiring customers or entering new markets. And I have been running that business for about 15 years. So generally, most of my time up to writing from the margins was spent on writing marketing strategies. But during the pandemic, I had the opportunity of kind of just not moving as much, being at home a little bit more. And I kind of was kind of reflecting on my business journey, what I had achieved up to that point in time. It gave me an opportunity for pause. And as a result of that, I started kind of looking back and writing that journey. And that's kind of the start of the writer's journey, if you can I call it that. And following the writing of From the Margins, the response was wonderful. A lot of people enjoyed the work. A lot of people saw purpose in the work, which is kind of what I wanted. And as a result of that, it opened up a lot of kind of mentorship opportunities for me to talk to other people about entrepreneurship and that journey. The Weaving of Kente is for, I don't want to sound so too much, make it sound too much spiritual, but it's really was kind of a spiritual journey. In that the I'd lost a very close business partner and friend of mine, Dominic Strawn, who helped me to start Point Global. During the process of that loss, I had the opportunity of being in Australia for an entrepreneurship conference and starting to kind of, I guess, download what that meant, what grief meant, what loss meant, what being a part of a process meant, what it means to become more of who you are, and you're kind of struggling with what's your place in the world and all of that. And during the course of that time, I spent some time in India. I spent some time in South Africa, and on generally Southern Africa, not just South Africa, but Zimbabwe, and between all of kind of just traveling between the African content and the Asian content, and really trying to process my own personal journey. The Weaving of Kente kind of unfolded in that process. So for both of them, they really represent very different phases for me as a writer, but it felt natural for both of these works to actually be put out and for me to share that journey with the general public. So in a way, that's kind of my writer's journey.
Okay, so the title The Weaving of Kente itself sounds more powerful and symbolic as well. So what's the exact idea or the meaning behind this
Yeah.
title?
So it's when you have, so I'm from Jamaica.
Yeah,
I grew up in Jamaica, spent most of my life in Jamaica, but I've traveled to a lot of places all over the world. And the more you travel to different places, you realize that people use different ways of preserving culture, especially when it's under threat. So if you're a Caribbean person, chances are the narrative that if you're an Afro Caribbean person, especially the narrative that you have of your place and how you arrived here, is through a lens of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade.
absolutely.
Um, if you so Jamaica is a very diverse population. We have a big Indian population. We have a big Chinese population as well. And if you have those narratives, the narratives you hear was around indentured servitude and all of that. So in it, I kind of started thinking about that as a kind of starting point to how my story was being told. And the more I traveled, especially as I traveled through Africa, through India, through different places in the world, I kept meeting people, and it felt like home, but different. So, for example, when I was in India and having Indian food, it felt okay. Like I've had this before, but with a Caribbean flavor. When I was in Africa and I was trying to buy clothing or cloth, I was like, I would see this before, but through the lens of another a kind of Caribbean experience. So, and one of the most powerful notions around that is clothing and cloth and how people use textile to weave culture into it. So the name, weaving came to me I want the original name was like the weaving, because I want to tell a story of the fact that your lived experience has so many kind of things dovetailing into it to make you who you are today. Some of them seen and unseen, and an understanding of that is a kind of a richness and a complexity that I would have to find a symbolism to kind of embody. So, when I was in Africa and in Botswana specifically, I started buying a lot of like African prints, and when I was in there, I was doing the same thing. I was in Jaipur, and I was buying a
Yeah,
lot of prints and stuff like that. And it just kept every time would talk to the salespeople around, the stories around. It had a richness and a tapestry and a history. I remember when I was in Jaipur buying a piece of cloth, and I still have it in the wrapper because I still don't know how I'm going to give honor to it, because it's made from different bridal garments that family members would contribute
yeah,
to the bride wedding. So it felt like the symbolism that I needed to use to tell the story was fabric. And so a lot of Afro Jamaicans like myself trace their ancestry to West Africa. And Kinte is a symbol of the monarch, of the
okay,
Ashanti people, of the Ashanti people in West Africa. So it felt like the right metaphor for what I was trying to say, and it was really around using clothing cloth specifically, which is what happens in the case of Kinte, to tell the story of the history of the people in such a way that it can be digested and understood by them. And it's such a simple thing, but such a powerful thing, because clothing is one of those things that you never really, people don't really see it as a symbolic or even a spiritual process. But here was a culture that, in because of neo-colonial activity on the content, because of everything that has happened, was able to preserve a piece of their history and their story and their culture through cloth. So for me, the symbolism of the kente cloth was kind of where I landed to say, okay, representing the transformation that happens through cultural lenses, representing the transformation that happens through human relationships, and representing that intersection between tradition and technology, and that struggle to tell the story in between.
got it. Okay, so I personally like the vision of your, and I can say perspective on the Jaipur clothes and whatever you have done like in the past, traveling the
Yeah.
world and everything. So like your first book, like From the Margins, it is like more like an entrepreneurial journey and personal stories. So
Mhm.
how difficult it was to bring to just come out of come out of the stereotypes and be an entrepreneur
Yeah.
back from Jamaica.
So you kind of look at things in retrospective. So as human beings, we look at things in retrospective. So um, for me, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. That's the simplest way to put it. But in a way, when you're 23 years old and you don't know how hard it is going to be. As a matter of fact, you don't care how hard it's going to be. You just know that you're working on something, you're invested in something, and you're trying to build something. So a lot of these stories that came out in From the Margins, it was almost pre-written. It was
Mhm.
already written because these were things that I encountered. It was my early life. It was my early friendships. It was things that I'd experienced these things that I talked about as an entrepreneur. So, and I had good support because I had a great writing partnership with a company called Bamboo Sparks, who held me accountable for my deliveries and stuff like that. But so in a way, From the Margin was a book that almost I kind of find it almost like I had to assemble it, but it was like already written because my business journey had written that story. Um, and what I wanted to do, yeah, and deliver is after running my business at the time, I think it was like 10 years, I wanted to kind of provide something that was I could give to my younger self, and say, hey, here you go. Here is how I did it. Go ahead and kind of do it as well. So it's very personal, but also it felt like something that was already done.
Definitely. Yeah, I've been writing this same kind of stories like about myself and the things which I have done in the past 5 to 6 years.
Yes,
So I've been trying to write that, but I have
yeah,
not been able to write it, or we can say the story is not complete yet.
yes,
So it's just in the process. Okay.
yes.
So
No, and I think that's kind of a part of it.
exactly.
The if you start to write, the story will be completed when it's completed. Because for the Weaving of Kente, it came to me almost immediately after I finished um, From the Margins as a book. But I struggled with how to tell that story. How do I bridge all of these kind of things that were happening around me at the time? Um, the loss of my friend who helped me to start Point Global. Um, Everything that was happening with technology and AI as a business process. This rapid transition from COVID that the world has gone through, and still going through. And all of those things were kind of crushing against the thought. But so I kind of I was struggling to kind of find, how do I tell the story? The story was inside of me, but I wasn't sure how to tell it. For me, the telling of it kind of came together when I went to Australia for the entrepreneur, and I get getting out of my natural comfort zone and environment kind of put other things into perspective, and that kind of brought it to a head. So it represents kind of two different processes, but I feel like it's actually a part of a story that that another piece needs to be written as well, which which I'm kind of working on as well. So it feels like it's a part of a three-part story, and I've written two of it already. And for me, over the last 5 years, that's been very revealing because yes, I liked writing, but more on the business strategy side and stuff like that. Never a kind of putting myself out there or stuff like that. But I again, I find the hand of providence kind of guiding the process and shaping what has happened. Because even my getting to the point where I could release the Weaving of Kente in 2025 was tremendous for me, because as you realize, it was 3 years of
Writing.
really kind of grinding it out and trying to refine it and taking it into different directions as well. Um, but again, I had good help, and I must give credit to the people kind of that helped me accountable to it, that kept me on track. That when I was kind of in the weeds, kind of took me out. And so yeah, but
That's
it's been a good journey.
okay. So both the books are on transformation. Okay, one from the personal journey and the other from the collective journey of humanity and the
Yeah,
spiritualness, as you said.
yeah.
So how do you align those two transformations like together? Like you have written the first one, the from the margins as a personal story.
Yeah.
Now this one.
Yeah. So I don't really think about it in terms of that. I think what I try to do is be authentic. I saw something this morning from I think is I don't know if I pronounce his name correctly, but it's Sadhguru that said um, integrity is being coherent with who you are, what you're doing, and how you're doing it all the time. And that's what I try to do with these two works. It's being totally authentic to my story in the case of From the Margin. And there are some things that I've left out that maybe that I'd want to put in, but I try to be authentic to the story and the journey. And with the Weaving of Kente is the same. It's um, but for the Weaving of Kente, it felt a lot more like this was this had to be done, and it was less about my doing it and more about my being a vessel for doing it. And that's kind of how I, I kind of process it. So I don't the kind of collective versus personal was never kind of intellectually or a part of the work in the thinking of it. But at the end of the day, really, you see those things coming out of the work, and I kind of attribute that to the fact that the Weaving of Kente was a much more kind of transformative process for myself, and the kind of going on a kind of mobile personal quest, if you can put it that way, and traveling while writing and kind of getting these insights while on the road, um, made it more of a collective work than on the margins where I was really at home and basically just working on it.
Got it. Okay, so the waving of Kente emphasizes the idea that humanity must weave the weavers. So, how can individuals, leaders, or we can say entrepreneurs apply that idea in their day to day decision making?
So I think key is to recognize that it's very difficult to understand your place in the world um, at any given point in time. And the maybe that is the way it is intended. Maybe the way it is intended is to not understand the full picture because it is yet to be revealed. But I think the powerful thing is recognizing that you have a place in a fuller picture, and that the fullness of that picture is what you should always kind of be in a quest towards achieving. And I think this is informed by my place as a Jamaican because Jamaica has kind of been at a crossroads of kind of many cultural experiences that has influenced our culture and our development as a country and how we think about ourselves as a people and interact with the world. So for me, the kind of dissonance that's kind of exists in the world now around who people see themselves as or what they want to represent themselves as, I see it as a fallacy if you think about it in the context of time and movement and everything that happens with people on an ongoing basis. So for me, that was kind of the core I wanted to a person reading to get to see that, look, maybe you don't understand the full picture, but there's a sense of a broader kind of tapestry that you're a part of. And as when the patterns reveal themselves, you in the same way that this represents the cloth of the king in a Ghanaian cultural context, the tapestry of your life will represent the crowning moment of what you're actually going through. And I think none of us kind of figure that out. Even in my own journey, every time I think, oh, I've done something that I'm personally happy about, or I've achieved something that brings me some kind of joy. I'm a very spiritual person, and I give I try to give credence to that. But I'm always surprised by something that gives me even more joy, even more happiness, even more impact and kind of on the journey. So I want people kind of recognize that even at their happiest moments, that it is this part of this like massive tapestry that is even more beautiful when it's fully kind of understood. I think um, maybe the Indian spirituality understands this more than anybody else. So, but I kind of that kind of informs my writing and what I wanted people to kind of be able to dissect.
Got it. So, as someone who bridges the business strategy with human impact, so what are the key qualities you will suggest? Like you believe the leaders need to build resilience and ethical awareness in this trade-driven world.
Yeah. So I think values is what the Western terminology is. But for me, it's again comes back to, am I being and am I turning up and in every situation as the most clear form of myself? Am I so for me, I used to, when I was talking about Point Global, tell people that I run a marketing and branding firm. But in a real way, I've always run an impact investment fund, because I've always tried to invest in smaller businesses, help them with the marketing, help them with strategy, and try to get them to open up bigger markets. During COVID, or just before COVID, when I started Esther, it was a recognition that you are doing this for impact. You're doing this because you recognize the value of entrepreneurship in economic growth. You recognize the value of entrepreneurship in building country and economic and giving people financial power and freedom. So I don't think I could get to that recognition unless I was always trying to invest in the things, values that informed who I was as a person, which is around impact. So what I would always, my advice to anybody who is trying to do a similar thing, regardless of what it is just to be clear on. I think it's cynic who uses the word clear on your why. And the why is super important, because it is what stays with you when everything else is gone. It's what stays with you when I don't want to do this call. I'm tired today. I don't, it was, so for me, it was an always a recognition that the point of my business is around impact. So my business stories are really around trying to convey people that they have the ability, if they're true to themselves, maybe not as business people if they don't want to be business people, but if you're whatever you're doing, if you're serving someone a coffee, you can do that with a pure sense of yourself. And if you bring that to every interaction that you're doing, um, then you're going to have a journey that is deeply enriching, in the process. Um, the universe is going to surprise you with gifts along the way to kind of transform and let you experience things that you never think you'd be able to experience. Um, so for me, it's around, again, around values, around being who you are always, around integrity, around showing up with your something I said to my team upon Global is the way we do anything is the way we do everything. And it's a recognition that there's no dissonance between how you turn up and how you perform in any given situation. But regardless of how simple it is, and maybe as a Japanese as a in the I don't know, in their spiritual practice as a thing about wabi sabi and about making sure that you're always performing at your best, regardless of emotional feelings around it. And I think it's kind of pointing to that.
Got it.
And then if you do that, there you will reveal beautiful pieces of heaven in those moments, and that's kind of what informs even now more so everything I do as a person.
Got it. So, what can we expect next from you? Like, are there any new books, projects, or initiatives you are currently working on?
So every time when I wrote Point Global, when I wrote From the Margins, I said, okay, this is a Point Global, and it will be my only book. And then Kente, and I said, okay, I think I'm done now. I have two books in me. I'll never have another one. But I'm working on another book now. It's called The Mask We Wear. And it's, which is why I kind of see it as three pieces of work that is I'm still going through. The Mask We Wear is in a very early stage, but I already know that it is probably one of the most important things that I will ever write as a writer. I don't know when I'll release it. I don't know when it will be ready. I don't know, but I have done enough work on it to know that I'm going to be putting it out at some point. It might be 10 years down the road because it's kind of weighty. It's kind of weighty.
Definitely,
Um,
definitely. Uh, Literally, best of luck for the new book, and
like,
take your time because time can give you better things. Okay, so the closing question will be like, finally, if there is any one message you like to listeners to take away from the Weaving of Kente and from the margins, what would it be?
um, to recognize that transformation are sometimes scary, but opportunities for maximum growth. And that's really it. Inte, the last chapter kind of tries to provide a counterbalance to the AI driven and the technology driven world that we are running towards. Um, Not like just at a speed that can't be comprehended. And I often pause to wonder if everything that we are trying to create in that world is not already here. And so it is the recognition for me of balancing the two is important. And that transformation can fuel human relationships in a way that help us build the pyramids or the every other great work that is an example of God's witness to people. So yeah, that would be the message.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Javed, for this conversation. So, if anybody who is listening this podcast, you can just connect with Javed on Instagram or on LinkedIn. The links are in the description. Also, you can just check out the books, The Weaving of Kente and From the Margins. It is available on Amazon, so you can just go and take a look at the book. So, thank you so much, Javed.
Thank you for having me. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
so much.